Urabi, a new student, arrives in Akira's class. Right from the get-go, she emitted an immediate air of peculiarity with her unconventional movements and half-hidden face beneath her bangs. Seated beside Akira, he attempted to extend a helping hand, ready to assist her in any way possible. However, Urabi earned the peculiar label of a weirdo from the very first day. During lunch breaks, she would promptly doze off on her desk, rejecting attempts by fellow students to engage with her. Her peculiar behavior escalated during math class, where she unexpectedly burst into laughter, attributing it to a personal matter she couldn't explain, much to their teacher's frustration. As a result, Urabi, known for her constant napping during breaks and her distant demeanor, acquired the reputation of being a weirdo. Unbeknownst to Akira, a pivotal shift was on the horizon. At dismissal, he noticed Urabi was the last person in the classroom, prompting him to wake her up. Observing drool pooling onto her desk, he reminded her before she left. As he turned back to the drool, his intrusive thoughts took over, leading him to taste it on his fingers. Acknowledging the surprising sweetness of Urabi's saliva, he was immediately horrified by his actions and hastily left the room. During the night, Akira dreamt of a girl, later revealed to be Urabe, holding his hand as they explored a peculiar city. They danced on a hotel roof, relishing the moments of their lives. This dream lingered in his mind for days. Several days later, Akira found himself collapsing unexpectedly. A severe cold confined him to bed for days, leaving his sister puzzled by the lingering high fever, despite the doctor's diagnosis of a simple cold. Stuck in bed, his sister brought news that a classmate had delivered school handouts, catching him off guard when he discovered it was Urabi. Her unexpected presence startled him, especially since she hadn't brought any handouts as claimed. Making herself at home on his bed, Urabi ominously addressed him, asserting that his illness was no ordinary cold. The shock intensified when she revealed knowledge of how he contracted the sickness. Somehow, she knew he had licked her drool from her desk 2 weeks ago. Rendered speechless, he watched as she lowered his face mask, instructing him to open his mouth. Coating her finger with saliva, she placed it in his mouth, and as she withdrew her hand, he felt a sudden improvement, his fever magically disappearing. She attributed his illness to withdrawal since he hadn't tasted her saliva in a while. Astounded, he struggled to comprehend the situation, prompting him to inquire if her saliva contained substances or bacteria, causing his unexpected addiction. Rather than providing him with more information, she erupted into laughter, causing his room to reverberate with the sound. After her laughter subsided, she elucidated that he was lovesick. According to her speculation, the moment he glimpsed her eyes when waking her up that fateful afternoon, he fell in love with her, explaining his peculiar reaction to tasting her drool. With this life-altering revelation, she amusingly reminded him to attend school the next day and exited his room. True to her suggestion, he returned to school the following day. To his surprise, Urabi awaited him after classes, expressing her desire to walk home together. Before parting ways, she once again coated her finger with her saliva and instructed him to lick it. Despite his initial hesitation, her warning about potential withdrawal left him with no choice but to comply. This post-school routine became a daily occurrence, and at some point, he indeed found himself falling in love with her. One day, after their usual after-school routine, he mustered the courage to confess his love and ask her to be his girlfriend. However, she challenged him to prove it in an original way, something unique to his thoughts. Thinking on his feet, he pulled out a photo from his wallet, claiming it was of a longtime crush. He confessed that after tasting her drool, he forgot about the previous crush. In a gesture of devotion, he tore the photo into pieces, symbolizing the end of his past infatuation. Declaring her as his girlfriend, he threw away the remnants. In an unexpected turn, her mouth overflowed with saliva, a sign of her happiness. Seizing the moment, she questioned him about his virginity. Upon confirming his virginity, a shared sense of relief washed over them. To his surprise, she revealed that when she laughed in class, it was in response to a voice predicting that Akira would be her first sexual partner. Naturally astounded, he could only watch as she made her way home. Just before leaving, she casually declared herself as his girlfriend. Seeking guidance, Akira turned to his friend Uno, for advice on navigating this newfound relationship. Uno proposed the idea of holding hands, a suggestion Akira found brilliant. Excitedly, he attempted to hold Urabe's hand on their way home, but she quickly withdrew, stating there was no reason for such gestures. Feeling a lack of relationship indicators aside from their daily drool-sharing ritual, Akira sought Uno's counsel again. This time, Uno emphasized the importance of communication before physical gestures, suggesting they talk about each other's hobbies and interests. Determined to strengthen their bond, Akira approached Urabe once more, proposing a conversation before parting ways. Perplexed, she agreed, and Akira asked what she would like to do. Her unexpected response caught him off guard. Expressing her skill with scissors, she handed him a piece of cloth. Swiftly extracting a pair of scissors from an unexpected location, she proceeded to craft a camellia flower, symbolizing his name's meaning. Concerned about the possibility of her inadvertently revealing her underwear to someone else, he expressed his worry. Surprisingly, she assured him that it was acceptable as long as it was him. As she departed, he considered this unconventional exchange a form of communication. Seeking Uno's not-so-expert advice once more, he inquired about what precedes communication and holding hands. After some speculation and doubts about Akira's relationship status, Uno suggested that greetings typically come first. Akira remembered greeting Urabe warmly when they first met, but understanding her remained elusive. An opportunity presented itself when he received 2 movie tickets for a film he had longed to watch. Viewing it as a chance for them to bond more like a couple, he proposed watching it together on Sunday. However, Urabe already had plans for that day, leaving him devastated. She reassured him that he was indeed Urabe's boyfriend, emphasizing their unique bond formed by his daily ritual of sucking on her saliva-covered finger. To affirm this bond, she led him to a temple and then to an abandoned building's creepy rooftop. Instructing him to keep his eyes closed until further notice, she promised a unique drool experience. When she carried out her promise, his body reacted unexpectedly. His heartbeat intensified, a fiery sensation enveloped him, and inexplicable arousal ensued, even causing a nosebleed. Meanwhile, Urabe appeared suddenly naked, with her clothes scattered across the floor. She elucidated that his heightened feelings were a result of her transferring her excitement through her drool, a privilege reserved for him as her boyfriend. After she redressed, she helped him clean the blood from his nose and saw him off. During their walk, she confessed that her heart was also pounding, emphasizing the importance of keeping his promise. Curious about the consequences had he failed, he received a swift demonstration as she brandished her scissors from her panties. Using his notebook as a shield, he avoided her artistic prowess in creating paper people. Thankfully, he upheld his promise. That night, he experienced another wild dream involving intimate moments with Urabe. The following day, as they strolled together, Urabe noticed his blush and inquired about it. While he mentioned it was a secret dream, she unexpectedly placed her finger in his mouth, sucking on it with a nosebleed-inducing effect. Astonished by her knowledge of his dream, he demanded an explanation. Instead of answering, she declared it a secret and playfully fled from him. Duty prevented Akira from accompanying Urabe home. While in a classroom, he accidentally witnessed his friend Uno kissing a girl. Shocked, the couple swiftly separated when they noticed him at the door. Apparently, Uno and the girl Oka were together since the first year, and they were keeping it a secret. He couldn't help but notice the similarities Urabe and he had with Uno and Oka. Like them, nobody actually knew that they were dating. The only difference was that the two were already kissing, whereas Urabe and he were nowhere near that level. He couldn't help but start obsessing about the act of kissing. On their way home, Urabe wanted to stop at the park. She intended to do her homework beforehand, so Akira decided to do his as well. While both of them were busy, he told her about Uno and Oka kissing when he walked in on them. At first, he was disappointed when she did not react much to him broaching such an intimate topic, when all of a sudden, she asked him if he wanted to kiss her. When he confessed that he did, she took out a test tube from her bag, asked him to hold it, and stood up to twirl fast for several seconds. She asked for the test tube back and held it to her mouth, letting her saliva drip into it. She then instructed him to taste it before sleeping. That night, he was dumbfounded. But as usual, he did as he was told. He tasted the drool when he was alone in his room. That night, he dreamed that he was walking side by side with Urabi. He watched her pop a piece of sweets into her mouth, and she noticed him observing her, so she offered him sweets as well. But rather than giving him a new piece like a normal person, she came up to him and planted her mouth to his, effectively transferring the candy to his mouth and popping another one into her own mouth. Naturally, Akira was flabbergasted. She explained that since he was envious of Uno kissing his girlfriend, they now have had a first kiss together. He became upset about this, passionately saying that first kisses ought to have feelings. On their way home the next day, Akira shared the peculiar dream he had after sampling the drool from the test tube. Intrigued, Urabe suggested they head to the woods. Once there, she asked Akira if he wanted to share a kiss. Blushing intensely, Akira took a moment before responding. He suggested they wait until they truly understood each other's feelings. Surprisingly, Urabe looked into his eyes, blushing, and agreed. Back at school, Akira pondered how to deepen their understanding of each other. During classroom cleaning, he noticed a classmate showing interest in Urabe, even following her to take out the trash. Later, during their daily drool exchange, Urabe revealed that Ogata, their classmate, had asked her out. Annoyed and surprised, Akira decided he needed to inform Ogata that Urabe was already his girlfriend. However, Urabe insisted it was her problem and told him not to interfere. Frustrated that Urabe didn't outright reject Ogata, Akira couldn't shake the feeling that she might be torn between the two, given Ogata's popularity as a soccer team member. The next day during lunch break, he watched Urabe walk out of the classroom, with Ogata trailing behind her. He was so infuriated that he forcefully took Uno's lunch and gobbled it up. Meanwhile, Ogata asked Urabe about her response, and she told him to close his eyes. He was confused for a bit, but he did it anyway. She then covered her finger with saliva and shoved it into Ogata's mouth. He was startled and asked her what she had just done, but rather than answering, she asked him if he felt anything different. Instead, Ogata denied that anything had changed. She then told him that he could never be her boyfriend. She walked away with a knowing smile, leaving the poor guy perplexed. Later on, she informed Akira about how she rejected Ogata. He was so relieved and expressed how he was worried she was choosing between the two of them. Hearing this, Urabe asked him to open his mouth, and he did so without question. She shoved her saliva-covered fingers into his mouth, and after a few seconds, Akira's nose started bleeding. Akira panicked and asked why it was happening. She handed him the underwear she was supposed to wear that day, and said that she wasn't wearing any. He was taken aback and listened as she explained that he was the only boy she had a bond with. Since Ogata did not react the same way he did, he became overwhelmed when she declared that he was her boyfriend. He attempted to hug her, but she evaded him and was about to take out her scissors, only to remember that she was not wearing underwear. He simply took the scissors from her bag and gently tapped his head with them, reminding him not to grab her like that again. Akira's joy was evident as she held his hand when they continued walking. Akira noticed that Uno was smiling too much, so he wanted to find out what he was so happy about. His friend told him that the reason he was happier than usual was that he finally got to see his girlfriend in her summer PE uniform. As he chatted with Uno, Akira found himself envisioning Urabe in a snug shirt and shorts, a thought that filled him with excitement. His musings were interrupted when he noticed someone approaching his napping girlfriend, Oka. Uno's girlfriend invited Urabe to have lunch, and although Urabe agreed not to wake her up again, the tempting aroma of Oka's meal aroused her. Oka insisted that Urabe try her cooking, leaving Akira and Uno astonished at the unexpected camaraderie between their girlfriends. The rest of the class was equally surprised to witness the usually solitary Urabe sharing a meal with Oka. During their walk home, Akira expressed his happiness about Urabe having lunch with Oka, especially given Oka's usual loneliness at school. Urabe reassured him, stating that she didn't need friends since she had him. She then offered him his daily drool, which he gladly accepted. Unbeknownst to them, an observer had been watching their interaction. The following day, Akira and Uno were thrilled that the first subject was PE, but their excitement dwindled when they were assigned indoor judo, while the girls participated in relay races outdoors. Urabi accidentally tripped during judo, resulting in a nasty gash on her knee. A member of the health committee offered to accompany her to the nurse's office. Finding the nurse absent, Oka took charge of treating Urabi's wounds. Afterward, they shared a drink from the clinic's fridge. Shortly after, as Oka sat beside Urabi, she expressed her desire to be friends. However, Urabi firmly declined, asserting that she had no need for friends. Oka accepted Urabi's decision gracefully, but promised to be there for her if she ever changed her mind. As they walked away, Urabi was surprised to discover that her right knee was now bleeding. When she pointed this out to Oka, it left her bewildered. Urabi retrieved a sharp cutter from a nearby desk, deliberately creating a small wound on her palm. She then asked Oka to put her drool-covered finger in her mouth. Despite initial hesitation, Oka complied, resulting in a small wound on her hand as well. Urabi explained that their strong connection was evident by Oka's physical reaction, similar to how she herself reacted when she drank Urabi's saliva. Although stunned, Oka suggested that this might be a sign they were meant to be friends. However, Urabi disclosed that she couldn't be friends with Oka alone, as she was already bonded with someone else. Oka correctly guessed that she was referring to Akira, whom she had observed in a mysterious activity, speculating it involved sharing drool. Urabi emphasized her preference for a singular connection, stating that she didn't need friends, and walked away. Later, Urabi unintentionally inflicted wounds on Akira when sharing her drool, prompting an apology. The next day, Oka approached Urabi again, requesting her to lick her saliva-covered finger. Although confused, Urabi complied and was surprised by the sweetness, declaring it the sweetest she had ever tasted. Oka was taken aback by this revelation, speculating that Urabi and Akira hadn't reached the first base in their relationship. Reflecting on her earlier silence, Oka surmised that Urabi's thoughts might have revolved around the absence of a kissing experience, especially considering the sweetness she found when Urabi licked her drool. Oka suggested they share lunch, explaining that even though they couldn't be friends, they could at least get along. As a result, they ended up having lunch together outside. Meanwhile, during the boys' soccer class, an amusing trick was taking place, kicking the ball to reach the fence where the girls were having their swim class. When it was Akira's turn, his main thought was the prospect of seeing Urabi in her swimsuit. Unfortunately, he got so distracted that he missed the ball and ended up on the ground, mourning the lost opportunity. As they walked home, combating the unusual heat with popsicles, Akira and Urabi found refuge under a tree when they realized rain was imminent. With no umbrellas, they were stuck together. As Urabi moved closer to avoid the rain, Akira couldn't help but notice her sweet scent. Attempting to discern if she wore perfume, he asked, but she denied it, attributing her scent to the heat and licking her arm, mentioning it tasted like the sea. Curious to learn more about her, Akira inquired about her love for the sea. She confirmed her fondness and annual visits, then suggested he lick her arm to experience a hint of seawater. Following suit, he was surprised by a vision of her in a swimsuit, enjoying the beach. Realizing their bond might extend beyond drool to include sweat, he spontaneously asked if she wanted to go to the beach with him during summer break. To his astonishment, she agreed with a smile, marking the beginning of their shared summer break as his first girlfriend. That's the end of the first part of this anime recap. Subscribe for the second part.